everyone, and welcome to the Leadership Heart Podcast with Sandra J. Horton, the Growth Catalyst. Well, welcome everyone to the Leadership Heart Podcast, the show where bold innovation meets conscious leadership. I'm your host, Sandra J. Horton. And I believe that leadership is not about titles. It's about impact and intention and the courage to serve others. On this podcast, we go beyond strategy and surface level success to have real and honest conversations with change makers in health and tech, innovation, social impact, HR, and beyond. You're going to hear from visionary leaders who are building organizations and supporting organizations that put people first. Yes, to understand the world better through technology, but humanity leads the way. So if you are ready to lead with purpose and clarity and heart, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. And I'm so honored to welcome Harvey Deutschendorf, a fellow Edmontonian. Welcome to the stage, Harvey. I'm going to bring you up now. There we go. Welcome, Harvey.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I have such a warm feeling bringing you into the podcast today. And because, Harvey has done, I'm just going to read a little bit about Harvey and his wonderful bio, and then we're going to jump into those wonderful questions because our hearts are aligned around emotional intelligence, because Harvey is an emotional intelligence expert, truly a speaker, an internationally published author of The Other Kind of Smart. It is simple ways to boost your emotional intelligence for greater personal effectiveness and success. He has been writing and publishing for so many high-profile publications. And he wrote the 101 Ways to Win at Work and Life, was published in 2023. Let me reread that. His latest book was The Emotional Intelligence Game Changers. There we go. 101 Ways to Win at Work and Life. And it was published in 2023. He has also been an internationally published author as well. And he has written many articles in Fast Company, 156 articles, Harvey. I don't know how you do it all. And you've written for HR Professionals magazine as well. You are a TEDx speaker and also a TEDx Beacon, which you did that on Beacon Street in Boston. In 2015, Harvey was recognized by Trust Across America as one of the top thought leaders in trust. That is a powerful designation, Harvey. He is a certified success principal trainer. And not only that, but your own personal life. You have overcome so many obstacles to get to where you are in life. His passion clearly it comes from being his own way of being inspired by the audiences when he shares his stories. And you have studied, you've walked the talk, and we're going to jump into that now, Harvey, because you are a lifelong learner, just like me. I love that piece. And your mission in life, as you state, is to help as many people as possible break through their barrier and reach their full potential. Wow. Thank you. And again, welcome to the show, Harvey.
Thank you. This is very exciting.
It's truly, it's impressive when we start to look at, you can't lead others until you can lead yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So from your personal journey, why don't we just dive in? You take it as deep as you want to go. But, we've all had to go through emotional barriers to be able to really break through and kind of unmask ourselves or to become who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you share in your life that really made that foundational change possible so that you could really unlock your own emotional intelligence?
Sure, I would love to. It goes right back. My family came to Canada as refugees after the Second World War. They had lost everything and had to borrow money from their church for passage to come across. And desperately poor. Most of the rest of the family resettled in Europe, but my father wanted to have his own business. The opportunity wasn't there in Europe, so they set out, not speaking the language. They were probably, my father, I think, was 44, not exactly a young kid anymore. And so, yeah, they set out to a new land. When they came here, they weren't well educated either, particularly, and they came here. And first 12 years, we lived in real poverty. I remember my mother saying that, telling us later on in life, when my brother and I became ill. My brother he was 2 years old when they came over. I was born in Canada, but anyway, said that there were some days she only had an orange to feed both of us. Unfortunately, don't remember that. Anyways, the poverty was one thing, but my father was a very, very angry man, and we were very, very afraid, and it just seemed to get worse as we got older, and things weren't going well at home. And I was in high school, and I think things were very, very bad at home. And one day, my high school principal said to me in front of the class, said, "Harvey, you've got a good head on your shoulders. Don't let it go to your head." So I went out into the world thinking, okay, somebody has acknowledged me, a man respected, well-educated, and worldly, thought I was smart. Said, okay, I had carried a lot of baggage from growing up, lot of emotional turmoil, dysfunction, and I was struggling. And I managed to go to university. I got a degree. I was working as a professional. I should have been great because I'd gone way beyond what anybody expected of me. To me, education was my way out of the situation, and so I managed to do that. And but I was struggling. I didn't have the career that I wanted. I didn't have the relationships, and I didn't know. So I said, I'm smart enough. I can figure it out. So I read books. I went for counseling, self-help books, and nothing seemed to really speak until one day I heard about something called emotional intelligence. And there was a book by Daniel Goleman called Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. And I was interested. So I jumped into it. And on page 4, at the beginning, there was a line that said, your intellect can come to naught when your emotions and it was aha. It was that moment I realized.
I was like, whoa, Eureka moment.
No, the problem is here.
Yeah.
I'm smart, but my emotions are not. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have emotions. That's what's tripping me up here. That's what's causing me a problem. So I said, I need to do something about this. So I read everything I could, and I was very fortunate because at the time there's a men's movement starting up, and it's now called the Mankind Project. Men were getting together and actually talking about what was real, their feelings, things like that. The men hadn't been really allowed to talk about, the only feeling that we're allowed to have, and our world was anger. And so we didn't sit around talking about cars and sports. We talked about what was really happening inside ourselves. And that allowed me to work on my emotions and start changing things, trying different things of relating, connecting. My world started to change. And then I thought, wow, this is powerful. So I thought somebody, and I said, somebody has to write a book to let people know about this. And I said, there's books like Goleman's books, but they're very academic, technical. Somebody has to put this in a way that everybody can understand, get this, tell some stories and share some ways that people can actually develop their emotional intelligence. So I decided, well, I wrote a book about men's issues years before, and I said, I'm somebody. I'm a somebody. I can do this. So
Yeah.
I did get a book, and I called it The Other Kind of Smart, because even though I thought it was very appropriate, even though I thought I was smart, it wasn't enough. Being smart just not enough, because emotional intelligence isn't an intellectual exercise. It's a experiential, and you have to experience it. And I was had the opportunity to do it, and still am in my men's group. And so it's something that we have to feel, we have to practice, we have to we have to experience it. So that's my story, and I'm still learning about myself. I'm still experiencing it, and
Mhm.
life keeps getting better. What can I say?
Well, Harvey, you brought up something really important is the understanding that wherever that culture, wherever you come from,
Mhm,
particularly for men, there was and I think it's changed a bit now, but in previous times,
mhm,
it was more of a real statement. We don't share about our emotions.
mhm,
It's either we show anger or we keep everything inside.
yeah,
And that can cause so much harm. So I
mhm,
would offer for those listening today, think about it now. What was your upbringing like? Were your family open? Were they open to, sharing their emotions, sharing how they actually showed up? And was it safe? Was it a psychologically safe space to share? And what I'm hearing from you, it wasn't in that time. And perhaps what you're still doing now, though, is really I'm encouraging men to look at their own life, because women, we tend to share a lot.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
We do.
yeah.
And so how do you move past then? Now you've had this awakening, you've had this moment, this aha moment that, hey, I'm learning they're about these emotions. I have to start to get in touch with them.
Mhm.
How did you start to do that? Like, can you give us some tips, tools, insights to, like, particularly for men, if this is resonating for my, male audience,
Yeah.
what can they do? How can they start to feel it, notice it, identify it, talk about it?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate because I found this is a Mankind project. That would ideal if you could find a group near
Mhm,
to you. There's lots of different groups, and because it was created a safe space
mhm,
where we could share all of our emotions, and safe container we called it. But find somebody in a relationship, somebody that you trust, and just sit down actually at the end of the day, and think of the times you felt strong emotions, and try to work those emotions back to something triggered you. You felt anger, you felt joy, and see, okay, where does that come from? Like, because usually something that brings out emotions in us, it's not as a result of what happened during that interaction, that moment. That comes from something way back. It could come from something we experienced all the way back in childhood. And that's what we
mhm.
do in our men's group. But think about that. You felt a strong emotion. When did you first experience that? Try to think back as far as you can. And a lot of times it goes right back to childhood. We remember that, something that brings up shame in us, something that type of thing, where we felt that. And a lot of times, and identify that. And the other thing we can do is, when we feel a strong emotion, is try to name that emotion. Try to name
Mhm.
it, because once we name the emotion, it takes some of the power that the emotion has over us away. Once we've, and we'll just naturally start to relax. We'll start to we won't go deeper into that emotion. Once we name it, we'll start to just come out of it, and look at our emotions when we have them. Develop an attitude of not judgment. Don't judge the emotions, because emotions aren't good or bad. They're giving us information. An attitude of curiosity. Just think, wonder why I felt that way. Where is that coming from? Just think about it. It's so good to develop an attitude of curiosity about everything that happens in our lives, instead of judgment, because an attitude of curiosity is a growth attitude. Attitude of judgment is
Mhm.
a fixed attitude. It leaves us stuck. When we become curious, we're open to all kinds of possibilities to our own growth.
Yes.
But when we make judgments, we're stuck in that place where we make that judgment, and the right or wrong type of thing.
Mhm.
The right arguing and stuff. That's um, just always think of yourself as, I want to learn, I want to grow, and whatever comes up for me, I want to learn more about it. I want to know more about it. I'm curious.
Yes, I love that. And you know what's really percolating for me in this moment is it's the ability to, pattern interrupters stop those thoughts. And I know you talk about this in your book as well, that some people can get trapped in those old, outdated internal narratives.
Mhm.
And that's our subconscious mind. It's saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to keep you safe. This is how you grew up, like in your story, right? If you
Mhm.
weren't feeling psychologically safe and all you experienced was anger,
Yeah.
what are you going to express? What's going to be passed down? So how do people break through those outdated narratives? You've already said some things like
Yeah.
to how to
Sure.
shift into the front brain and get curious and have that sense of
Yes.
gratitude. What else can people do to rewrite and identify those stories?
Right. Well, the first thing we could do when we're feeling a very, very strong emotion, like
Mhm.
I mean, not emotion, more feeling joy. We've just won something, or we've just had a book published. We can let loose there. But
Yeah, yeah.
but if we're feeling
Relatable.
anger, something really negative,
Yeah.
the thing to do is to give ourselves some time. Do not react. And I did a podcast, not a podcast, I should say, a TEDx talk on on
Mm.
on road rage, and how to sort of overcome that, because that results is very, very powerful. Uh, you know, Anger out of control. So what we need to do is we need to give ourselves some time out when we're feeling. We want to say something that could come back to bite us later. And
Hmm.
just when strong emotion, give ourselves some time, because it takes about at least 6 seconds or so. When we experience something, it reaches our emotional brain, our amygdala first. Okay, we feel before we think. That's important to remember. We feel. So when there's a strong emotion that sort of has us in their grip. Give some time. If you have to walk away from a situation, give it some minutes till you can start thinking about it. Because when you start thinking, when your frontal neocortex kicks in, it's not likely you're going to make the same decision. You're going to be able to respond from your powerful thinking brain, not from your emotional brain. See, our emotional brain was there because we've had that since we lived in caves. And the reason our emotional brain would give us messages is either fight or flight. And we needed it at the time because there were things like saber-toothed tigers that could kill us. We needed a quick message. But right now, that doesn't serve us much. But we still have it. We still have it. So if we're feeling triggered about something, you want to react, we need to give ourselves some time till we can think it through. And we're not going to make the same decision if we think it through that we would have, if we don't. Yeah.
You know what? And thinking about that, we are confronted right now. So if you're a leader
Yeah.
or an aspiring leader, or just for your own self, there's so much coming at
Mhm.
us. And
Yeah.
I'm mindful of the words that I'm using right now, because words have power, don't they?
Yes.
Words trigger what we're experiencing. And I have to share a little story. Hi, Cecilia. One of the things that I remember very clearly is, the Leadership Heart podcast is framed in three different pillars. One is self-discovery through our eyes leadership Horton and leadership model, then through change readiness, then into sustainable change and impact.
Hmm.
One of the things that I found in self-discovery, exactly what you're saying, I was so stuck in my brain as someone who lived completely, like, because of my early childhood trauma, I was completely numb. I was living in my brain and not attached to my heart. So maybe this resonates for other people, because when you're just reacting, you don't know what's happening inside you.
Hmm.
So do take time right now, like Harvey was saying earlier, like take the time, look at your stories, look at where you have come from, who you are, in how you define it, those stories, because they're going to tell you something about how you're looking at yourself, and to open yourself up. And when I did that, I connected to that heart space, because I had turned it off because of fear and trauma. When I connected back into my heart,
Hmm.
to my mind,
Hmm.
and I made that choice, and I went into EQI and I started to explore it. Like, I really feel what you're saying, Harvey, because it's like this whole new moment of life.
Hmm.
Like, I call them heart signals,
Hmm.
because oh, you just feel yourself. And then it takes this time and this grace and compassion for yourself to
Yeah.
say, okay, what am I feeling? And then making a different informed choice. And you talk about this in your book as well,
Mhm.
that emotional intelligence, so learning our
Mm.
emotions. And I want to get into, I know I've done this before in some other podcasts, but I do want to say, what is EQI? Because it's a big word out there that people are like, what is emotional intelligence? It's a set of skills, but maybe we can just talk about that, because EQ, emotional intelligence, like learning how to self-regulate and stuff,
Mhm.
is learnable.
Yeah.
So can you just define what is EQ for everyone listening now or later on the podcast, so they can really ground into this? And, let's start there, and then I'll have another question after that.
Sure. Yeah. Our EQ is our emotional intelligence is our ability to identify and differentiate our emotions and manage our emotions. That's important, as well as
Mhm.
the emotions of others in our environment. Yeah, I like the first part of the definition, because we can totally manage our emotions. There's we can grow constantly and learn more about our emotions and manage them. We do have some ability to manage others' emotions. I'm not sure that to the same extent is our own, but if you doubt that we can manage others' emotions, try this. Walk into your favorite grocery store and just have a stone look on your face. Don't smile, or even look very grouchy and look at other people. Notice your reaction to you. Then throw your biggest, warmest smile, put it on, and walk in there and just look at people and smile. Notice if you get a different reaction. People will
Mhm.
react to that. Not only that, very interesting, you'll feel better if you smile, even when there's nobody to around you that to smile back at you. But
Yeah.
it's something called emotional contagion. You affect the emotions of others around you. So
Mhm.
if you walk into when you're speaking and talking to a group of people, put on a big smile. It's very important. That alone makes us feel better, regardless of how we're feeling at the moment. If we do that, you'll notice something. You change how you feel about yourself.
Yes, and I love that piece, and I want to welcome. I put in the chat. Welcome, Mike, and all the youth from their beautiful. Everyone, I just appreciate you all being here. That's so great. This is so important, because no matter where you are in your life's journey, every moment, how we show up matters. And these emotions and how we're, percolating them inside ourselves, we have an impact on others.
Hmm.
And so whether you're in a leadership role, or if you're an aspiring leader, or you wanting to do something great in your life, the choice of how we want to show up is critical.
Hmm.
So understanding that piece, what you've just shared, it's about knowing ourselves, understanding our emotions, how we then can balance our expression of who we are in a way that is positive. So put a smile on your face, use words that are powerful, because EQI is really about stopping the reaction and turning into responding.
Hmm.
So, what are some red flags that a leader should look for? We're going through some change. We've got lots of things happening around us. What are some red flags that as a leader we need to be mindful of or aware of when, we're trying to help people look to change? Because change creates what? A lot of uncomfort, discomfort, a great growth
Yeah.
opportunity, but this is where the EQI really starts to show itself.
Hmm. Well, the first thing is we are sort of hardwired to when there's change that comes up. We're always looking for the negative. That's still when and that's from the beginning of time. We have to watch out. There's something
Mhm.
changing. There's something negative. That's the first place that we go to, is something negative. So the leader has to be aware of the people. They're going to have negative feelings about that. There's going to be fear. There's going to be anxiety, and the need to address that, not just to skip over that and say, yeah, this is going to be great. There's nothing.
Mhm.
Great. We can't skip over that. Those feelings have to be addressed. People they have to be acknowledged. And people have to be heard. People have a
Mm.
need to be heard, because that's a human need. And even though we may not agree with them,
Mhm.
It's very, very important that they have the opportunity to be heard. Now, in a lot of cases, when there's resistance to something, there's negativity, there's conflict. We're not going to agree to come to a solution. Like, we're not going to agree with the leader particularly, but we have an understanding that at some point we're going to have to compromise. The important thing is that we're heard and that we're acknowledged. That's the important thing. Then once we're heard and acknowledged, we're ready to make some changes. We're ready to move on. But if we're not heard, we're not acknowledged, we're going to continue to resist. That's just our nature. That's the way we're built. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's interesting and fascinating. I want to again welcome. Thank you for those who are listening live. We both really appreciate you being here. Nilfar, thank you, Cecilia. I love the questions and echoing in on what Harvey is saying today. It is this important understanding. I remember when I had this moment, Harvey,
Mhm.
where life had happened. Life happens to people. Things happen to our situations, and I realized that again. I'm going back to the choice of how I see the change.
Right.
And so I want to dive into, because I know you speak on this, and it is critical around emotional intelligence. And so when we have a choice of how to assert ourselves, it makes a difference, because I see this in the work that I'm doing. When there's a lot of change that's happening, people either are going to make two different types of choices. They're going to either be adopt the change, they're going to be an early adopter, they're going to get involved in the change, and that's because they've looked at change as a positive, the growth opportunity, versus fear and pain and loss.
Mhm.
And then they can retract and basically become a resistor or resenter,
Yeah.
etc. So how have you been able to help the teams and leaders understand that, where that person is, and how can they be more emotionally intelligent in understanding those ways of being through change? Does that make sense? I hope that does.
Yeah. Okay. What I do is there's something, an interesting exercise. We have to become active listeners, and
Mm,
come naturally to us. So we'll be being active listeners, because most
yep.
of the time when we're speaking to someone, we are thinking of a response. We're not really listening to what they're saying. We're just coming up with what our response to them. But what I was taught to do this, and this came out of a workshop that my partner went to, a couples workshop. And what we learned to do is, one of us would speak for 3 minutes. The other person would remain silent, and their job was to feed back to us what we said. That was their job. So they didn't have to think of a response. But that took away that urge, because that feedback to us in their own words, whatever what we heard them say, and then we take turns doing that. And just practicing that helps us become better listeners. When we're not, we don't have thinking of a response. When we really, really listen, then we dig deeper. What did you mean by that? What did that mean? So listening and remembering things about people that are important to them is crucial, because that's building relationships. Because if I know about your family, remember the names of your children, your pets, your dog, where you like to holiday, things that are important, have meaning in your life. Okay,
Mhm.
I remember those things next time we meet. You have the feeling that you matter to me, because I remember things about you, your name. Okay, important things, because you'll feel a connection, because we're
Mhm.
hardwired as humans for connection. You'll feel that connection. Wow, I must be important to this person. They remember things about me. They just weren't waiting to talk about themselves. Like this. I hear so many converse. It's not really conversations. So many monologues where two people are speaking, and they're not having a conversation. They're having monologues. Both of them are talking about themselves, and they're not really connecting on any kind of a level. And
Mhm.
a real conversation where you're connecting, you're remembering things about people, you're asking questions, you're digging deeper, you're actually building a relationship. That's the kind of conversations that we need to have more of, where we're actually trying to understand the other person. We're finding common ground. We're not just thinking about something that we want to talk about. So
Mhm.
we're learning, we're discovering meaning, we're discovering things that we have in common. That's the way to build those relationships. That's the way to build trust. Even though we
And
don't
that's
do
a
it.
big thing,
Yeah,
trust. I'm going to
yeah.
jump in there, Harvey, because Harvey was acknowledged as, I have to go back to your bio just a second here, because this is important here. Because trust. So Harvey in 2015 was recognized by Trust Across America as one of the top thought leaders in trust. So thank you for bringing that back into this conversation, because trust is so critical, in all of what we're talking about today. So can you give some suggestions to the audience now? How is, again, the best way to build trust?
Well, the best way is to keep our word,
Mhm.
not gossip, of course, obviously, but to when we promise somebody something, make sure we follow through, and we don't. We speak about the person when they're not there in very positive ways. They know that they
Mhm.
know that we have their best interest at heart. It's a matter of being consistent with our words, with our actions, and you know actually treating the person at the checkout the same way at the when we're buying our groceries, that we do the CEO of, our boss, our CEO or whatever, treating them the same way, treating other people with respect, and just
Wow.
yeah, very careful with our words and actions. Yeah.
And I think that's the powerful thing, because what we've been talking about is emotional intelligence, but underlying that is these core values, isn't
Mhm.
it? The
Yes.
core values of knowing yourself, what's important to you. Like if I go back to the very beginning of what we were discussing, Harvey, it's about that self-awareness. So if trust is important, because I think trust is important, what else is important to your life? And then stopping, and what you were just saying, engaging, being an active listener.
Mm.
What is the other person actually saying? So then you can hear what they're saying to you
Mhm.
fully, and then removing that bias. Because I'm finding now, again, I want to kind of go more into the technology piece as well, because we're so fast paced right now.
Mhm.
Building connection, building trust, those are key aspects
Yes.
for us to be present with someone else.
Mhm.
But yet, what's happening? Are we doing that though? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts when it comes to this whole technology and emotional intelligence, building trust, building connection? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
It's a big
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I think yeah, the when it comes to AI, things like that, we need to understand what AI can do and what it can't do. Okay, it's wonderful for uh, compiling information very quickly, and
Mhm.
all kinds of information. It can provide us tons of information. What it cannot do is build connections between us. That's the only thing.
Yes.
Humans have to do that. Okay, so it can't take over that role, and we need to build. This makes emotional intelligence even more crucial, because more and more, if we interact, through AI, things like that, we rely on AI. We're go- the fear is, I guess, the danger is that we're going to lose connection with each other, and
Mhm.
that will be difficult to rebuild those types of connections, to build trust amongst people. So we have to realize while AI is a very, very powerful tool, it cannot build connections between people, which we need. We're hardwired for it. Can't build trust, and we need to. It is not creative. It can't create. It can only develop. It can only put out what it's programmed to do. It doesn't have any capacity for creating anything, for understanding nuances. The rich environment that our brain can grasp, things that have happened in their lives. AI cannot do that. Only humans can do that with each other. Tell interesting stories, connect in a way with each other, and we need that, because we need to manage. AI is a brilliant tool, but we need to manage it, and we need to use it towards in a way that serves us, not in a way that is going to take away from our humanity, from what we are as humans. So yeah.
And I always say, our output in AI is always as good as we are as humans.
Right. Exactly. Because
So
AI.
if we're emotionally intelligent, if we really understand how we're thinking, like our being, like how are we showing up? What are we thinking? What are we experiencing? What are we hearing? Because we take in input every single day, and how we, internalize that, how we process it, and then choose to then respond, not react, because that's what we're talking about today, has such a profound impact on everything in your life.
Exactly. And what
go ahead.
What actually frightens me, I've heard comments on different platforms, is when will AI have empathy, emotional intelligence? It can never have empathy, because it's not AI is not a living thing. It can never have it. It can only put out what it's been programmed into. It can never develop its own. Only humans can do that. But somehow it's getting the idea that we can actually develop AI that has empathy, but that can't happen. It's never.
And that's why we have to take control, Harvey. I mean, really, that's the key.
Exactly.
As the membership chair for the Global AI Council, it's really important. I see around the globe some great leaders doing good work to humanitize, democratize AI for good, for all. And I think it's a powerful, positive tool if it has the right guardrails. Like, we do need to have guardrails where it is a tool.
Yes.
So we have to be the best versions of ourselves as conscious leaders. So remove the ego. We haven't even talked about the ego. Because when a particular individual comes in and their ego is coming forward, and we know how we see ego because we experience ego, the first step to become more emotionally intelligent is to really realize when you're in your back brain, the ego is kicked in, fight, flight, respond, react, to stop, pattern interrupt it, and then make new choices. So as we move forward, as we are using these tools, as we're building the trust, because we control this, we're building trust with this new technology, we're building trust with each other, because you are this master expert in trust. What can leaders do in teams to build more trust, so that if we have these problems, we have these questions about, well, how do we implement this AI solution or whatever's coming up? What can we do as conscious leaders to build more trust today that helps us navigate these changes, whether it's an AI, like I said, in implementation?
Well, first of all, before we roll out an AI program, is something everybody has to be listened to, and their concerns have to be taken seriously. And we have to have a set of values under which we operate, because, again, AI has no morals, no values. It's whatever is most expedient. So it's up to us to be able to put the parameters around AI and what we will ask it to do and what it's able to do. And like any tools are meant to serve us, not the other way around. There's the the AI gone amok can control us. I mean, that's the fear, the danger. It's real. Yeah, it's a danger. It's real. So we have to be very, very aware of that, and we have to ensure that everybody's opinions are heard, and that everybody has input into decision when we start using AI. And if we're finding that we're having problems with it, we have to sit down and look at it again much more closely. If it feels like AI is taking control in areas that we as humans should, we have to have a serious conversation about that. And we have to go into it very openly without rushing into it, because we can quickly get sort of taken aback by, wow, this new shiny object syndrome, where, oh boy, it's going to do everything for us. Just rush into it, and we've seen that happen. So we need to have a long look. hard look about it into AI and to see what it can do for us. And it can do some amazing things, but we have to recognize the limits of it as well.
Absolutely.
And draw parameters. Yeah, but before we actually implement, we have to know, are there any warning signs that are going to come up that we need to talk about it then. If maybe we have to change things up a bit. We can't go into it sort of with like with our eyes closed. We have to seriously talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Harvey. And the importance of the blind spots. I'm going to come back to kind of loop us back in. I can't believe we're already 40 minutes in. I'm like, we're having a great conversation today. It really is a dialogue. And this is also a key learning point, is when you're present with someone, you're actively listening, then you can have a dialogue which builds that trust between people, right? It's a two-way communication, not just a one-way going out. and so what this whole piece today is really stirring in me, because again, I'm going to ask the audience, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing right now? Let's just write it on a piece of paper now. What is the one word that kind of comes to you? What's the one feeling? What are you hearing now? And then what can you do today that's different than maybe what you've done in the previous days? What is that one thing? So Harvey, let's bring this now into kind of like that legacy, the impact. Where do you feel like, as an emotional intelligence practitioner, as an expert in this area, where is emotional intelligence going to go? Because it really is that differentiator with AI. We all need to have it. Yeah. So where's EQI going to go? What do we need to do to make it more prominent or more well known, like implemented every day?
Well, what both of us are doing are putting the word out, and every EI practitioner out there that's doing is putting the word out. And it's always strange. It's almost like, I've written so much about IQ and EQ. What's more important? And I wrote about this in Fast Company. It says, it's like asking the question, what's more important, your heart or your lungs? Well, they're both important. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is, how do they work together for the most in the most effective manner? That's the question. How can we both of them work together? It's always seen as, okay, one versus the other, which is better. It's not that. The question isn't, how do we work together in the most effective manner? And that should be the question around AI and EQ. How can they both work together? Not the question which is more important. That's a judgmental question. That's not a growth question. The growth question is, how can we work together, make these two work together in the most effective way? That should be what we're thinking about all the time. So my analogy that I put in my book was, when what's the difference between, what's more important, EQ or IQ? Says, okay, so it's like a race car. Okay, say the engine is the IQ. Okay, the driver is the EQ. So what's more important to win the race? Is it the engine or the driver? Well, actually, both are important, very important. Because without, you can have a very, very skilled driver that doesn't have the most important, powerful engine, can still win the race. If you have a powerful engine and the driver is very, very unskilled, you're going to crash. Yeah, we've seen that.
You are.
So, yeah. So if you have both, that's beautiful. That's great. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And people think when you're promoting EQ, you're minimizing IQ. You're not. You're not minimizing. We have to get over that and say they're both important. Let's see how they can work together to get the most benefit, the most effect for us and society. Yeah.
And I think this is the important piece. I want to go back to what we said a little bit earlier, because, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And it's learning to trust what is a trusted source. It's learning, I go back to the word trust, and kind of we're wrapping these pieces up, because there's so much out there. There's so much happening. There's so much knowledge. and knowledge, it does give us the power to be able to move forward, shift our life, do new things. But it's learning, and again, I'm going to put this up if I can do this well. Bear with me here for a second. There we go. The Game Changers. So many beautiful books that Harvey has brought to this beautiful world. I would please advocate for everyone to go out and get all of Harvey's books, which is behind him, because they're tools. There really are tools to help support us to learn, and then to actually action out. Or if you're going to learn, you can read it on Kindle, not just go to ChatGPT, even though I love the resources. I use the resources all the time. I think the importance is, how do we learn for ourselves? What is that trusted source? And so I want to come to you on that, because you are that trust master, how to build trust, how to build connection. Can you, in kind of those closing statements, share with us, what can people do to build that trust, understand the trusted source? I think that's an important question that's coming from me in this moment.
Yeah. People can do to build the trust in themselves. Yeah.
Yep.
It's to just to always follow through. When you promise something to people, to always remember things about them, to always be impeccable with your word. Don't when you talk about them the same way when they're there, then if they're not there, they know that you have their back. You're not going to betray them anything. Just be open, be yourself. Let them know that they can be themselves around you. You don't put your ego doesn't get in the way. You're open, you're vulnerable. That will allow people to be vulnerable themselves. You'll share things when you're in a relationship, sort of not totally tell them, share everything in your life when you first meet, but slowly open up, become more vulnerable, allow them to become more vulnerable. Give them permission to open up and be vulnerable around you. Let them know that it's safe to be with you. Make them feel safe. They'll feel it. You don't have to tell them, but they'll start feeling safe around you and trusting you over time. It takes time.
Wow. It does take time, and I know I'm just really enjoying our time together. There's so many different areas. I'm just feeling like this is another learning area, because when we are in such a fast pace, the importance of just stopping, taking a breath. I call this like my core change model. I won't get into it now, but it's so interesting when you're in that treadmill, and this may resonate for those listeners now. You're going, you want to, move ahead and all these things. Just remember that you're being driven internally by these beautiful little emotions and our old patterns or ways of thinking and being. And we need to stop,
slow down,
take a breath.
Take a breath. Yeah. Be in the moment. Be in the moment. Be, I guess, mindful. The good feeling is if we get to the point where we're in an interaction, and we can actually look outside ourselves to think, okay, how am I doing this? How well am I doing this? It's like we're looking down upon ourselves and saying, yeah, this is going well, or I need to. Being sort of aware of ourselves outside of ourselves, almost where we can see ourselves, what we're doing, and that building that type of awareness of ourselves. It's a great feeling, knowing that we can control ourselves to that degree, that we're okay. That feels so good.
It is a powerful thing, and this is where I would offer for the audience too, is consider your next situation, that maybe there's a crucial conversation that needs to happen. So what Harvey is talking about is evoking that observer and going into second or third position, like actually go into the other person's position and look through their eyes. What do they see you? How do they see you?
Yes.
Like, what's your voice like? What's your body like? Are you like this or are you open? And this is the interesting piece. Or be like a bee. This is
Yeah,
why I always love Harvey, and thank you for cueing me as well.
yeah,
Because when you take yourself out of it, you allow yourself to kind of ground into that moment and shift
yeah, yeah,
perspectives. And I want to kind of wrap this up
yeah.
around perspective taking.
Right.
And I think that's the greatest gift, is understanding that self-perception, the
Mhm,
self-awareness pieces, our
mhm.
expression, how we build our relationships, manage, the stressors, all those kind of beautiful things, because the perspective is the critical piece. So maybe as we summarize, Harvey, and then I'll go into all your beautiful books and opportunities to connect with you. Um, just wrap us up around perspective and how important that is, because I think that's really what we've been talking a lot about in a bigger
Yeah,
piece
yeah.
today.
That perspective is
Mhm,
having the a learning mind, a curious mind, being
mhm,
open and curious. And it's funny. We just talked about, when you're having an interaction with somebody, I try to mirror the other person's body language. Or sitting around the
mhm.
table, or leaning forward. I will lean forward, and had to at first think about that, but now it almost comes naturally. I find myself sort of modeling what they're doing.
Mhm.
Say that, and that, to me, that's where the connection really comes in, when you're on the same wavelength. And perspective is always to being able to look for opportunities to connect, opportunities to be better, to learn, to grow, and always being able to, if there's an opportunity, moving out of our comfort zone is very, very important, because we grow when we're doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable. That's when the growth always happens. So I should always be looking for an opportunity. Let's try this. I'm going to try something different. See how that works. Always
Wow.
looking at things that way. Always, everything is an opportunity to learn. Everybody that I meet is an opportunity to learn something new. Every situation gives me an opportunity to do better than I did in the last situation. So always seeing things that way. It's a continuous growth. It's never a sprint. It's a marathon, and it'll sort of, for me, it'll end, when I have my last breath on this earth. So, and it's ongoing.
It's so true. My smile is so happy because I really appreciate having you on the show today. We could keep going for hours. There's so many different areas to,
Yeah, yeah,
to unpack, and I've kept you longer than I said I would, but
wonderful.
i- it's such a beautiful gift to have someone who is heart led,
Mhm.
at the Leadership Heart podcast, because Harvey has been doing this good work. You are truly an expert in emotional intelligence. You've written about it, but more importantly, though, and this is for everyone, how are you integrating all of this beautiful new knowledge?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a repeat, but
Mhm.
what and how are you showing up today? These are the important questions, because everything's a learning opportunity if you know it is.
Yes.
And so that's shift ourselves. So in summary, Harvey, um, let's just say, kind of what can people do as they move away today? What are some things they could do, to really become more emotionally intelligent? And then we're going to go into your links to your beautiful work. So,
Yeah.
what can people do to take away, to maybe try something different?
Well, do keep a little, sit down at the end of the day or whatever. Keep a journal of what happened today, and record. Okay, don't beat yourself up. If you didn't do things the way you wanted to. But a win is not only doing something different, doing something you wouldn't have done before, but a win is not doing something, not reacting to somebody with anger and you would have done before. It's avoiding something that you would have done before. That's a win, and give yourself credit for that. Be gentle with yourself. Forgive yourself.
Mm,
You've developed patterns throughout your life. You've used them. It's going to be continuous, ongoing work, and you're going to slip. You're going to slip back to the old patterns. But this is important: is when you do it long enough, you'll develop a new pattern, a new way of thinking that will become your default. You know, it's not like when you're in your you're on your computer, you can just click and make something else your default. This takes work, but you can develop new and patterns that work better for you. Your life will work much better. Just keep doing them, and eventually the old patterns that are dysfunctional will fall away, and the new patterns will become the norm for you.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that so much. So Harvey, how do people connect with you?
Oh, they can connect theotherkindofsmart.com. That's the website, and there's a free 15-question quiz that they can take that's self-scoring, and it's even available for 120 languages for people that English isn't their first language. They'll give you your score right away. There's a free downloadable, inspiring, and motivational downloadable book of EI quotes. Quotes. So you can download that and you can get in touch with me there, or you can even email me at it's harvey.eiguy@shaw.ca. So I'm the
Wow.
EI guy. Yeah,
Well,
harvey.eiguy@shaw.ca.
I love that. Thank you, Harvey. And I'm going to come to the conclusion of our beautiful day today with Harvey. And I want to thank Harvey so much for the time, the attention, the generosity of your knowledge, because emotional intelligence is what drives everything. And it's such a beautiful gift. You can learn, you can grow in it, and celebrate in it.
Yes.
And just, truly just believe that you are an amazing, powerful individual that can live in truly whatever it is that you want to bring into this world. So
Exactly.
take
Thank you.
time and bless yourself today with some new opportunity, new action. Give yourself some grace. At the Leadership Heart Podcast, I want to thank you again for joining us. Walk away today with something new, something that you can apply, because then step by step with consistent right action, you will change and you will lead with heart. So thank you, Harvey, so much. I'll catch you on the other side.
Thank you very much.